Sophia Wanuna. So I have been a journalist practicing for the last 12 years now. And how did I get here? So I started out at the national broadcaster. This is after a friend mentioned they were auditioning for this presenter job for a women's show. But before even that, I remember growing up, and in primary school especially, I'd get involved in, we used to have reading contests, yeah? And so I'd win quite a number of those. Just, it's about gesturing, reading, articulation, enunciation, all of that. And so you win and then get these vouchers to buy more books, which meant more reading for me. But also when I'd be home, I remember I would grab the newspaper. My dad would come with the papers after work. And when I'd be alone at home, I'd imagine the living room is folks watching me and I'm somewhere presenting and read the paper as if I'm reading news. So I guess it was just somewhere lingering inside my being, inside me, and came to life at that point where this friend mentioned about an audition. At that point, I was in my second year in college, in university. So went on to do that, and the rest is history, really. Here I am. And it has been now 10 years, a decade, the Standard Group, KTN News. And what a journey it has been, quite the experience, right? I've managed to be out in the field, reporting, in studio, anchoring news, doing interviews, and I've enjoyed the ride, I remember some of the stories I've been able to cover that really stick out is, like the Westgate attack. You see the tragedy of this kind of terrorism and what it does to people. And so to be present in the moment to report, but also there are these people going through the motions that have undergone this horrific event, the same as Dusit as well. Covering those kind of events, it really does take a lot because you're thinking on the go. You're on your feet for copious amounts of time and gathering all of this information, delivering it in such a way that there's still a rescue operation ongoing, so you have to protect those that the security agencies are trying to get to safety, but at the same time get all of this information out. So covering those, I remember one of the most heart-wrenching assignments I've been to as well a few years back is where 40 police officers were killed by bandits at the Suguta Valley. And being there, I remember we covered that with Muhammad Ali. I was much younger then, but going with him with his experience at the time and being in this field in the middle of nowhere. We had walked for like 4 hours because the terrain was so harsh you couldn't get a car through to that particular place where this had happened. And the smell of death, literally, because some of those bodies as they were being, collected and picked up, had been there for days. And so that's one of the stories that remains etched, what those police officers went through. And so it's why I do what I do. I think love for country, being able to tell these stories. When I speak about love for country is to hold leaders account, because a lot of these people we interact with in our shows and the stories that we tell are people who hold office in trust. And so for my mother, for my brother, for my cousin, for you all as our customers, they serve us. And so it's important that we put them to task to account for the offices that they hold. But yeah, so journalism for me is a very empowering position to be able to, on one hand, you're not an expert in all of these fields that you get to deal with, depending on where the story is, because that largely does direct the path we take, although sometimes we also are agenda setting. But in a sense, whilst you're a journalist, but it requires that you have this breadth of information, all of this knowledge. So it's a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of networking as well, getting to know these individuals who then are easy to or helpful in as far as turning around this information in a meaningful fashion for our viewers. So it has been an exciting journey, and largely being in the field, partly now in management as well, is a new task, a new challenge we've taken on. What would I be doing if I wasn't a journalist? A lawyer. I'd be doing that. It's something, I know it entails quite a lot of reading, but I'm intrigued by the legal parlance and engagements, and just when you listen, for instance, to one lawyer canvassing a matter, and then they convince you like this is the position, this is what's up, but then you listen to the other countering those arguments, and it's just that whole intriguing thing. And so that it requires that one is really dedicated and committed to whatever it is they're defending. So you're going deep down to get all of the information you can to deliver these punchy, articulate, straight arguments that get you to win. So I think I would be a lawyer. Yeah, so you mentioned Miguna deportation. I'll tell you the funniest thing, it's like the whole country was watching news that evening, because every time I meet people, they're like, nakumbuka, nikikuona, airports, they were roughing you up. So, I mean, it started off just as we are telling this story. I remember I was anchoring I was the lead reporter for the big story, so went out to the airport. I had booked an interview with Miguna. So we had agreed once he lands, we'll record and tape the interview for the show. But when he landed, he wasn't allowed to exit. So literally thinking on my feet with this little space between the door, managed to do the interview, just put the microphone there, talk to him, and just get to recount all of what had transpired up to that moment. But of course the cops then came, because now this thing was like everybody was all eyes on the drama unfolding at JKIA. And so they came and, trying to kick us out, roughed up quite a number of my colleagues at the time. What didn't make it to the camera, and what many people may not know, is so eventually when there was this like press conference and some of the politicians were addressing, and they came and just were literally scattered everybody and running and getting out of there. I remember, so all the cameras are off, but we'd left our bags back at the restaurant at the airport, and so we needed to go get our equipment, part of it. But some of the cops were like, no, and Denny, you're not going to take your stuff. And this one cop said, kwanza wewe msichana, unafanya nini huku usiku? Men are out here this time, unafaa kuwa nyumbani na bwana yako ama na watoto wako. So yeah, because I was the only lady journalist at that point. But it's a lot of what I have encountered, even covering at some point a different assignment in Somalia. Again, people think just because I'm a woman or I'm female, there are certain things I shouldn't do, certain spaces I shouldn't be in. I'm all about safety and stuff, but I refuse to be boxed into this chauvinistic lens that some would have approaching women journalists or even women in other fields.